My name is Michael Vega. I'm 52 years old, and I'm from a quiet Midwestern city. I dedicated 6 years of my life to caring for my wife, Emily, who was supposedly paralyzed after an accident. Everything changed 3 days ago when I took her to the hospital for a respiratory infection. The doctor walked out of the exam room with an expression I will never forget. He looked me straight in the eye and, in a shaky voice, said, "Mr. Vega, call the police." At that moment, I didn't understand why, but I was about to discover a truth that would completely destroy my world. But before I continue with the story, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and comment where you're watching from. Your support is crucial. If you asked me what my life was like before that day, I'd tell you it was a routine of sacrifice and devotion. Every morning, I woke up before dawn, my body aching from sleeping in that uncomfortable armchair next to her bed. Despite the exhaustion, the first thing I did was smile at her. "Good morning, my love," I'd say as I prepared everything for her morning wash. Today is Tuesday, full bath day. My life had become a series of meticulously organized routines. Emily's bath required heating the water to the exact temperature, preparing the towels, the neutral soap that wouldn't irritate her sensitive skin, and placing the portable bathtub next to the hospital bed we had installed in the living room. Everything had to be perfectly organized before I began. "Let's get you out of these pajamas, honey." With the care I had learned over the years, I would slide the fabric off her motionless body. Emily had been a dancer before the accident, a woman full of life and movement, reduced to that cruel stillness. From what I was told, a truck ran a red light as she was crossing the street. I was out of town, working. I never forgave myself for not being there. I held her firmly but gently, just as the nurse who came at the beginning had taught me. Over time, I learned to do everything myself, how to move her without hurting her, how to support her neck, how to maintain her dignity while I bathed her. "Do you know what day it is?" I would ask, while running the sponge over her back. "Today is our 27th wedding anniversary. Do you remember our wedding?" I liked to talk to her during her bath. The doctors insisted that even if she couldn't respond verbally, she heard everything. They had taught us a simple system. 1 blink meant yes, 2 blinks meant no. It was our way of communicating. That particular day, as I was finishing drying her, the phone rang. It was Linda, Emily's sister. "Good morning, Michael. How's my sister today?" We're in the middle of her morning bath. "Everything's normal. Perfect. Just letting you know I'll stop by this afternoon. I need to talk to you about something important." "About what?" "I'd rather tell you in person. It's about the papers for my parents' house." "All right. We'll be waiting." After hanging up, I noticed something in Emily's eyes, a tension that unsettled me. "Are you in pain?" I asked her. "Blink once for yes, twice for no." 2 slow blinks. There was no physical pain, but something was bothering her. "Linda is coming later. I'm sure you'll be happy to see her." As soon as I mentioned her sister, I thought I saw a flash of fear in her eyes. I chalked it up to my imagination. After so many years of caregiving and sleepless nights, sometimes I saw things that weren't there. While I was feeding her breakfast, oatmeal with honey and orange juice, all blended as the doctors instructed, someone knocked loudly on the door. "Who is it?" I shouted from the living room. "It's David, Emily's cousin. I need to talk to you, Michael." David, the awkward cousin who always showed up at the worst times with his business proposals that never benefited anyone but himself. "Give me a minute," I replied with resignation. I wiped Emily's mouth and whispered that I'd be right back. When I opened the door, David walked in without waiting for an invitation, impeccably dressed as always, with that air of superiority that irritated me so much. "Michael, you look terrible. Can we speak in private? Emily is having breakfast. Say what you have to say, and make it quick." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I'm here to talk about Uncle Robert's inheritance." "The inheritance? What does that have to do with me?" "Everything. Robert left a considerable trust fund for Emily, on the condition that it be used for her treatment. Listen, Michael, I see you every day, taking care of my cousin, wasting your life. That money could be put to better use. It's being used for what Robert wanted. Emily's care. Yes, but there are experimental treatments overseas. We could." I cut him off immediately. "We? There is no we, David. That money is for Emily, and I decide how it's used based on medical recommendations. You're stubborn. Think about it. With a portion of that trust, we could invest in a specialized clinic that I would manage. Emily would have the best care, and you could finally get some rest." I stared at him, holding back my irritation. A clinic that you would manage? How convenient. It's a legitimate business proposal, he insisted. The answer is no. Now, if you'll excuse me, my wife is waiting to finish her breakfast. David clenched his fists but kept his artificial smile. This isn't over, Michael. I'll be back with documents. With lawyers, if necessary. You're being selfish. You think you're the only one who cares about Emily? Goodbye, David. When he finally left, I went back to Emily. Her eyes were wide open, and I could have sworn there was fear in them. Don't worry, my love. No one is going to make decisions for us. The rest of the morning passed in the usual routine. Physical therapy, reading, the classical music she loved so much. The phone rang again. It was my sister, Lucy. Michael, how are you? Tired, as always. And you? Worried about you, as always, she replied. Have you heard anything from Sarah? Sarah, my other sister. She disappeared 2 years ago without a trace. The police investigated, but they found nothing. She just vanished. Nothing new. It's like the earth swallowed her whole. I still think we should hire a private investigator. We already did, Lucy. He found nothing. But that one was cheap. We could find a better one. With what money? Everything I have goes to Emily's care. That's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about, she said cautiously. I've been thinking. Maybe you should consider putting Emily in a specialized facility. You too? Did David talk to you? David? No. Why? I briefly explained the visit from Emily's cousin. Lucy sighed on the other end of the line. No, I haven't spoken to him. But think about it, brother. You haven't lived for 6 years, and now with what happened to Sarah. I'm not going to abandon Emily. It's not abandoning her. It's seeking professional help, allowing yourself to breathe a little. For what, Lucy? To look for Sarah? We've already tried everything. Not just for Sarah. For you. You need to get some of your life back. The conversation exhausted me. It was always the same with my family. I have to go. Emily is about to wake up from her nap. After feeding Emily her lunch, I settled her down for her usual rest. That's when I noticed something strange on her nightstand. A bottle of pills I didn't recognize. I couldn't remember the doctor prescribing anything new. I picked it up and examined the label, but it was partially smudged. What is this, Emily? I asked, showing her the bottle. Her reaction surprised me. Her eyes flew open, and she started blinking rapidly, chaotically, breaking our usual code. Calm down, my love. Did someone give you these pills? 1 blink. Yes. Linda? 2 blinks. No. David? A long blink. Yes. I felt my blood boil. What was David doing giving medication to Emily without my knowledge? I put the bottle in my pocket, determined to take it to the doctor to have it analyzed. The afternoon wore on, and Linda arrived on time, as she had said. She was carrying a folder with documents. Hi, Michael. She greeted me with a kiss on the cheek. How is she? The same, I answered curtly, remembering the pill bottle. Linda went over to her sister and took her hand. Hi, Em. You look good today. For the second time that day, I noticed something strange in the interaction. Emily didn't show her usual joy at seeing her sister. On the contrary, she seemed tense, almost afraid. What did you want to talk about? I asked Linda, offering her a coffee. It's about our parents' house, she said, sitting at the table and spreading out some papers. You know it was left in my name and Emily's. With the situation as it is, I think we should sell it. Sell it? But that house has sentimental value for you both. Sentiment doesn't pay the bills, Michael. Besides, the money would be good for better treatments for Emily. Here we go again. First David wanting to use the trust fund. Then Lucy suggesting a facility. And now, Linda wanting to sell the family home. Emily would never want to sell that house. Emily can't decide right now, Linda said with a coldness that chilled me to the bone. You have her power of attorney for medical issues, but for property matters, I also have a say as a co-heir. We'd need to consult with a lawyer, I replied, buying time. I already did. Here are the preliminary documents for the sale, she said, pushing the papers toward me. I just need your signature as Emily's legal representative for the initial proceedings. I looked at the papers without touching them. Something wasn't right. First David with his sudden interest in the trust. Now Linda wanting to sell the house so urgently. I'll have to review them carefully and consult with my own lawyer. There's no time for that, Michael. I have an interested buyer offering an exceptional price, but only until the end of the month. I'm sorry, Linda, but I'm not signing anything today. Her face transformed for an instant. I saw something I had never seen in her, a contained, almost animalistic fury. But she quickly regained her composure. As you wish, but think it over. The money would be good for all of us. Before leaving, Linda leaned over to Emily to say goodbye. She whispered something in her ear that I couldn't hear. My wife's expression changed subtly. When we were alone, I sat beside her. What did Linda say to you? Emily started blinking rapidly, agitated. Easy, my love. Slowly. Did she threaten you? One blink. Yes. A shiver went down my spine. Does it have to do with selling the house? Two blinks. No. With your uncle's trust fund? One blink. Yes. Something serious was happening. Between David, Linda, and those mysterious pills, I felt that Emily was in danger. But how could I protect her if I didn't even understand what this was all about? That night, while Emily slept, I reviewed the documents Linda had left. It wasn't just a proposal to sell the house. Among the papers was a forged power of attorney with my signature, authorizing Linda to manage all of Emily's assets, including the trust fund. The date on it was from 3 months ago. Someone had forged my signature. With trembling hands, I found my phone and called Dr. Mendez, Emily's primary care physician. I'm sorry to call so late, doctor, but this is urgent. I need Emily to be examined tomorrow morning. Has her condition worsened? No, I don't know. I found medication I don't recognize, and there are strange situations with her family. I understand, Michael. Bring her in first thing in the morning. I'll do a full examination, and we'll analyze those pills. I barely slept that night, watching over Emily. For the first time in 6 years, I doubted everything and everyone. And what if the accident wasn't really an accident? What if my sister Sarah's disappearance was connected to all this? What if my entire devotion to Emily had been part of some sinister plan I couldn't comprehend? The next morning, I got Emily ready early. I explained that we were going to the hospital for a routine checkup. As I dressed her, I thought I saw a tear slide down her cheek. Don't be afraid, my love. I'm going to protect you. The drive to the hospital was tense. Every red light reminded me of the supposed accident that had left my wife in this state. Every curve made me think of all the twists and turns of the last 6 years. When we arrived, Dr. Mendez greeted us personally. He examined Emily in detail while I waited nervously, clutching the pill bottle in my pocket like a silent piece of evidence that something was wrong. I need to run some blood tests and some neurological studies, the doctor told me after the initial checkup. It will take a few hours. You can wait in the family lounge. While I waited, I called my lawyer to tell him about the forged documents. He assured me we would file a formal complaint that same afternoon. The hours passed slowly. I saw nurses coming and going from Emily's room. At one point, Dr. Mendez came out, accompanied by another doctor. They both looked at me with an expression I couldn't interpret. Dr. Mendez approached slowly. Mr. Vega, we need to talk. His voice sounded strange, as if he was struggling to find the right words. We've found something disconcerting in your wife's tests. What is it? Is she worse? Dr. Mendez took a deep breath before answering. Michael, call the police. Right now. The doctor's words echoed in the hospital corridor like a gunshot. My mind couldn't process them. The police? Why? What's wrong with Emily? Dr. Mendez looked at his colleague, a neurologist according to his lab coat, and then led me into a small consultation room. He closed the door behind us. What I'm about to tell you is difficult to explain, he began, rubbing his temples. We've run various tests on your wife. Electromyograms, an MRI, complete blood work. And the anxiety was eating me alive. Your wife isn't paralyzed, Mr. Vega. The room seemed to spin around me. I grabbed the edge of the table to keep from falling. That's impossible. She hasn't moved in 6 years. I bathe her. I feed her. Listen to me, the neurologist interrupted. The tests are conclusive. There is no damage to her spinal cord. There is no atrophy corresponding to 6 years of immobility. Her muscles show signs of recent use. But I see her every day. She doesn't move. She can't speak. We communicate with blinks, for God's sake. Doctor. Mendez placed a folder on the table and opened it. It contained the test results. We also found traces of substances in her blood, benzodiazepines, mainly, in controlled doses, enough to create the appearance of paralysis, but not so much as to endanger her life. I collapsed into a chair, unable to process what I was hearing. Are you saying that Emily has been faking? For 6 years? Not exactly faking, the neurologist clarified. She's being systematically drugged, but not enough to cause actual paralysis. Someone is keeping her in that state, and she seems to be cooperating. The pills, I mumbled, pulling the bottle from my pocket with trembling hands. I found this on her nightstand. I didn't recognize the medication. Dr. Mendez took the bottle and examined it. These were not prescribed by me or any doctor at this hospital. We need to analyze them. But from the looks of it, they could be part of the cocktail of drugs we found in her system. Who has been giving her this? I asked, though deep down I already knew the answer. The police will have to determine that, Dr. Mendez replied. For now, we have stopped all medication. If our diagnosis is correct, she should start to regain mobility naturally within a few hours. I want to see her, I demanded, standing up. First, we need to call the authorities. This is a case of possible medical abuse, maybe even attempted murder. Murder? The word hit me like a sledgehammer. The substances we found, administered over such a long period, could have caused permanent damage. It's a miracle she hasn't developed severe kidney or liver problems. We called the police from the office phone. While we waited, Dr. Mendez continued to explain the situation. The preliminary analysis of her blood shows a very specific medication pattern. Someone has been dosing her with almost professional precision, enough to keep her docile, but not so much that the symptoms would be obvious in our routine checkups. I brought her for checkups every 2 months, I said, feeling my world fall apart. How did you not notice before? Because someone likely adjusted the doses before the checkups. The levels would drop just enough for the symptoms to seem consistent with her supposed condition. Besides, he hesitated for a moment. Her medical appointments have been very spread out this past year. Linda managed them, I muttered, remembering how Emily's sister had offered to help me with the appointments. She said it would let me get more rest. 2 police officers arrived in less than 15 minutes. A woman in her 40s, Detective Miranda Suarez, immediately took control of the situation. I need you to explain everything from the beginning, Mr. Vega, she said after the doctors presented her with the clinical findings. How did your wife's supposed accident happen? It took me a few minutes to gather my thoughts. 6 years of my life seemed to be dissolving before my eyes. I was out of town, in Chicago, on business. I owned a small craft business. I got a call from Linda, Emily's sister. She told me Emily had been in an accident. A truck had run a red light and hit her as she was crossing the street. Did you see the police report from the accident? No, Linda took care of everything. When I got to the hospital, Emily was already unconscious. The doctors. I looked at Dr. Mendez. Not Dr. Mendez, but the doctors who initially treated her. They told me she had suffered spinal cord damage, that she would never walk again. Do you remember which doctors treated her? Dr. Valenzuela was the main one. I don't think he works at this hospital anymore. Dr. Mendez chimed in. Valenzuela resigned about 4 years ago. He moved abroad, I believe. The detective took a note and continued. Who else was involved in your wife's care? At first, a nurse named Laura came. She taught me how to care for her. After a few months, Linda said it was an unnecessary expense, that I already knew how to do everything. There was also David, Emily's cousin. He would show up from time to time, supposedly to help, but he always ended up talking about the trust fund Emily's uncle had left for her care. Detective Suarez leaned forward. Tell me about this trust fund. Emily's uncle, Robert, left her a considerable trust, about $3 million, exclusively for her medical care in case of serious illness. After the accident, as her husband and legal guardian, I had access to that money only for medical expenses. Who was the trustee of the fund? I was, along with a notary, an attorney named Morales. Any withdrawal needed my signature and his, and the family home you mentioned, the one Linda wanted to sell, it's a property in the historic downtown. It's probably worth $5 million, maybe more. It was left to Emily and Linda when their parents passed away. The detective continued asking questions for almost an hour. Every answer I gave seemed to open new cracks in the world I thought I knew. One last question for now, she said finally. You mentioned your sister Sarah disappeared 2 years ago. Can you give me more details? A lump formed in my throat. Sarah used to come over often to help me with Emily. One day, she told me she had noticed something strange about Linda's behavior, that she wanted to investigate further. The following week, she disappeared. She left a note saying she needed time for herself, that she was going to the coast for a while, but she never contacted us again. And you didn't find that suspicious? Of course I did. I hired a private detective, but he found nothing. The police said she was an adult who had decided to leave of her own free will, that there were no signs of foul play or reason to suspect a crime. The detective closed her notebook. Mr. Vega, we are going to reopen the investigation into your sister's disappearance. And now, I need to speak with your wife. My heart skipped a beat. Can I be there? I'd prefer to speak with her alone first. According to the doctors, she should be regaining her ability to communicate. Dr. Mendez intervened. Actually, I think it would be better if Mr. Vega were present. The patient might feel safer. The detective reluctantly agreed. When we entered Emily's room, I was surprised to see her with her eyes open, more alert than I had seen her in years. Our eyes met. I didn't see the love I expected, or even guilt. I saw fear, a deep, animalistic fear. Mrs. Vega, I'm Detective Miranda Suarez. Can you understand me? Emily nodded slightly. That simple gesture took my breath away. For 6 years, she had only responded with blinks. Doctor, Mendez informs me that you should be able to speak soon. Once the effects of the medication wear off completely, the detective continued. In the meantime, you can respond with gestures. Do you know who has been giving you these substances? Emily stared at me, then looked away toward the detective. She nodded again. Was it your sister, Linda? Another nod. More decisive this time. Was anyone else involved? Emily nodded again. David, your cousin? A nod. Anyone else? Emily closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering strength. When she opened them, her lips trembled. She slowly mouthed a word, silent but perfectly legible. Valenzuela. The doctor who had treated her initially. The one who had diagnosed her paralysis. The one who had disappeared 4 years ago. The detective checked her watch. I'm going to leave a patrol car guarding your room, Mrs. Vega. And I'll need some officers to go to your house, Mr. Vega, to secure the location and search for evidence. Of course, I replied, still in shock. For now, do not contact anyone in your wife's family. We will inform them that she is hospitalized for respiratory complications, but we will not mention our discoveries. We need them to believe everything is still the same while we investigate. When the detective left, I was alone with Emily. The silence between us was heavy as lead. I approached her bed, unsure of what to say, how to act in this new reality. Emily, why? It was the only thing I could manage to say. She looked at me with eyes full of tears. She moved her lips, trying to speak. Finally, in a voice hoarse from years of silence, she whispered, Sarah. The name of my missing sister on her lips sent a chill down my spine. What do you know about Sarah? I asked, leaning toward her. They killed her. I felt the floor open up beneath my feet. A nurse came in at that moment, interrupting us. She was there to check Emily's vital signs. I need you to step out for a moment, sir, she asked. We're going to clean her up and run a few more tests. I stumbled out into the hallway, staggering like a drunk man. I leaned against the wall, trying to breathe. Sarah dead. Emily faking. 6 years of my life dedicated to a lie. And I still didn't understand why. Dr. Mendez came over with a glass of water. You should go home and get some rest, Michael. It's been too many emotions for one day. I can't leave her, I replied. What if they try to hurt her? There are police officers on guard, and we'll be watching closely. Go, pack some things, and come back. We'll set up a more comfortable chair for you so you can spend the night. I finally agreed. I needed fresh air and time to think. Besides, I had to accompany the police who were going to search my house. The drive home was surreal. The same streets I had driven down that morning with a paralyzed Emily now seemed to belong to a different reality. When I arrived, 4 officers were already waiting at the door. While they searched the house, I started packing some things for Emily and for me. Clean clothes, toiletries, the book I had been reading to her, mechanical acts that helped me not to think too much. In the bedroom that had been ours, before the hospital bed in the living room became the center of our existence, I found a small key hidden at the bottom of my sock drawer. I didn't remember ever seeing it before. One of the officers approached me. Do you know what this key opens, Mr. Vega? I have no idea. We examined it together. It was small, probably for a safe deposit box or a padlock. The officer photographed it and put it in an evidence bag. Can I check your sister-in-law's belongings? The officer asked. Linda's? She doesn't live here. I mean anything she might have left behind when she visited. Oh, right, she sometimes used the guest room, this way. We found nothing unusual in the guest room, until the officer looked under the bed and pulled out a small suitcase. Do you recognize this? No, I replied. There shouldn't be anything under that bed. I clean it regularly. We opened the suitcase. It contained documents, an old cell phone, and something that made my blood run cold. Sarah's favorite bracelet, a gift I had given her for her birthday years ago. The officer immediately called Detective Suarez to inform her of the discovery. Meanwhile, we turned on the phone. The battery was almost dead, but it worked. In the photo gallery, we found images that chilled me to the bone. Sarah, clearly beaten, tied to a chair, and next to her, smiling for the camera, were Linda and David. "Oh my God," I muttered, feeling like I was going to be sick. The officer gently took the phone from my hands. "This is crucial evidence, Mr. Vega. I need you to remain calm." But calm was impossible. The images were burned into my mind. My sister. She's really dead, isn't she? The officer didn't answer, but his eyes said it all. When I finally returned to the hospital, it was almost dusk. Detective Suarez was waiting for me. "We've issued arrest warrants for Linda Hernandez and David Rojas," she informed me, "and we're searching for Dr. Valenzuela through Interpol. Have you found anything about my sister?" "Not yet, but the photos are damning. We're expanding the search perimeter." "Can I see Emily now?" "Yes, but there's something you should know." She's started to speak more clearly. "What she's saying is, disturbing." "What is she saying?" "It's better if you hear it from her. But prepare yourself, Mr. Vega. This goes much deeper than we ever imagined." I entered the room with my heart pounding in my chest. Emily was sitting up in bed, awkwardly holding a glass of water. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. "Michael," she whispered in a weak voice, "forgive me. I had no choice." I slowly approached and sat on the edge of her bed. "Why, Emily? Why 6 years of this sham? What happened to Sarah?" Emily closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering her strength. When she opened them, I saw a determination in them I had never seen before. "It all started with my uncle's trust fund," she began. "But it turned into something much worse. Linda and David didn't just want the money. They wanted to make us disappear. All of us." I sat beside her, trying to process what she was saying. The hospital room, with its white walls and smell of disinfectant, seemed like an unreal stage for such a confession. "Make us disappear? Why?" I asked. Emily took another sip of water. Her hands were still shaking, but her gaze had become firm, determined. "My parents' house. It's not just a property in the historic downtown. There's something more. Something my father hid before he died." "What?" "Documents, proof of David's illegal business dealings with local politicians, fake contracts, bribes, money laundering. My father was an accountant, and he discovered everything. He hid them as a life insurance policy, but he died before he could use them." "And Linda? Your own sister is involved in this?" Emily nodded slowly. "Linda always envied what I had. My marriage, our father's affection. When he died and David told her about the hidden documents, she saw her chance. They planned the fake accident to control the trust fund, keep me drugged, and quietly search for the documents in the house. But the house was left to both of them, I reasoned. Linda could go in whenever she wanted. It's not that simple. My father was meticulous. The documents are in a hidden safe. Only I know where it is and how to open it. He entrusted it to me shortly before he died. A memory flashed through my mind like lightning. The small key we found in my drawer. A small key? A brass one? Emily's eyes widened in surprise. "You found it?" "Sarah hid it for you. She said it was the only place Linda wouldn't look." "The police have it now," I replied. "But Emily, what really happened 6 years ago? How did they fake the accident?" She looked away, toward the window. Night had fallen over the city. "There was no accident. Linda drugged me during a family dinner. When I woke up, I was in the hospital with Dr. Valenzuela telling me that if I didn't cooperate, they would kill you. They showed me pictures of you, being followed by armed men. They said it was simple. I would pretend to be paralyzed. You would manage the trust for my medical care, and they would withdraw the money little by little. Why didn't you try to warn me?" "I tried, Michael. So many times. At the beginning, when the nurse was still coming, I tried to communicate with blinks, but Linda was always watching. Later, when Sarah started visiting more often, I managed to make her understand that something was wrong. And that's why Sarah disappeared," I murmured, a lump forming in my throat. Emily nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Linda and David caught her checking my medications. They kidnapped her. They showed me pictures of her, beaten, to keep me quiet. They told me if I didn't play along, I'd be next. My God, Emily." I took her trembling hand in mine. "And Dr. Valenzuela, He forged all the diagnoses. He was in on it from the beginning. He received a cut of the trust fund as specialized consultations. When he got too greedy, they sent him abroad. The door opened, and Detective Suarez walked in. She had overheard part of our conversation. "Mrs. Vega, I need you to give me more details about the documents you mentioned and the whereabouts of Dr. Valenzuela." For the next hour, Emily shared everything she knew. Linda and David had withdrawn over $1 million from the trust fund in those 6 years. Dr. Valenzuela, she had heard, was in Argentina under a false identity, and as for Sarah, the last she knew, they were holding her at a rural property owned by David on the outskirts of the city. "But that was over a year ago," Emily said. "I don't know if she's still alive." The detective took detailed notes and then looked at both of us seriously. "We have patrols looking for Linda and David, but we can't find them. They're not at their known addresses. It's possible they were tipped off about our investigation." "Tipped off? By who?" I asked, alarmed. "We're looking into it. It could be anyone. A hospital employee, a contact on the police force. The corruption networks your wife mentioned are extensive." The detective moved closer, lowering her voice. "For your safety, we're going to move Mrs. Vega to another hospital. And you should come with us. Is the situation that serious? If what your wife says is true, these people are not only involved in fraud and kidnapping, but likely murder. They will stop at nothing." The transfer was arranged for the early morning. A hospital in a major city where Emily could receive specialized care to recover from the long-term effects of the drugs. I would go with her, protected by undercover officers. As we waited, I sat with Emily in the darkness of the room. Only a small lamp illuminated her face. After so many revelations, I still had more questions than answers. "How did you endure all of this?" I asked. 6 years of faking, knowing what was happening. "Thinking of you," she replied simply. "If I revealed myself, they would have killed you. David has dangerous contacts, hitmen. I heard him talking to Linda many times about how easy it would be to solve the Michael problem. But living like that wasn't a life, Emily. It was a prison. I watched you day after day, sacrificing yourself for me, and I couldn't tell you the truth." Her voice broke. "The worst was at night, when you were sleeping. Sometimes Linda would come and force me to walk around the house to prevent muscle atrophy. If I refused, she threatened to hurt you." "You walked? In our house?" "Only when you were fast asleep. Linda would give me something so you couldn't hear me. Always watched. Always threatened. And the blinks? Our way of communicating?" A sad smile appeared on her face. "That was my little rebellion. I established that code with you, hoping I could use it to warn you someday. But they were always watching." A nurse came in to check Emily's vitals. When he left, I continued with my questions. "You said this all started because of the documents your father hid. What's in them, exactly?" "Fake contracts between David's construction company and the state government. Overbilling, ghost properties. My father was the company's accountant before David took over. He discovered they were embezzling public funds, millions of dollars. And why didn't he report it? He tried, but no one believed him. An old accountant against a businessman with political connections. That's why he kept copies of everything as insurance. When he got sick, he told me where he hid them." A soft knock on the door interrupted our conversation. It was Dr. Mendez. "Sorry for the late hour, but I wanted to check on the patient before the transfer," he said, approaching Emily. While the doctor examined her, my phone vibrated with a text. It was from my sister Lucy. "Where are you? I stopped by your house, and no one was there." "I'm worried," I replied briefly. Emily had complications. "We're at the hospital. I'll call you tomorrow." I immediately received another message. "Which hospital?" "I'm on my way." I looked at the detective, who had come back into the room. "My sister wants to come. Is it safe to tell her where we are?" The detective frowned. "For now, it's better not to involve anyone else. Tell her you'll call when things have stabilized." I followed her advice and put my phone away. Dr. Mendez finished his examination. Physically, she's improving, but she'll need intensive therapy to regain full mobility. 6 years of forced inactivity have considerably weakened her muscles. "Will I have permanent damage?" Emily asked in a trembling voice. "It's hard to say right now, but with the right treatment, you should recover much of your functionality." When the doctor left, Emily turned to me with an expression I hadn't seen before. Pure determination. "I need you to help me find Sarah," she said, "if she's still alive." "The police are handling it," I replied. "They've sent units to David's property. She's not there anymore. They moved her months ago. I heard Linda talking on the phone. Do you know where? Not exactly, but she mentioned the lake house. David has a cabin on the lake. He never took me there, but he mentioned it sometimes. I passed this information to the detective, who immediately made some calls. When she returned, her expression was grave. We've located the cabin, but we need a warrant to enter. We're working on it. At 3 in the morning, everything was ready for the transfer. 2 orderlies helped Emily into a wheelchair. She still couldn't walk on her own. Her muscles, though not atrophied as one would expect after 6 years of real paralysis, were extremely weak. Detective Suarez personally directed the operation. An unmarked vehicle was waiting for us at the hospital's service entrance. 2 plainclothes officers would escort us. The drive to the city will take about 4 hours, she informed us. There's a private clinic waiting for you, with staff we trust. As we moved through the silent hospital corridors, I felt a growing sense of unease. Everything seemed too easy. If Linda and David were so dangerous, if they had so many connections, wouldn't they have tried something by now? My unease turned to panic when we reached the parking garage and I saw who was standing by the vehicle. My sister, Lucy. "Michael!" she exclaimed, running toward us. "Thank God I found you!" The detective quickly stepped between us. "Ma'am, this is a police operation. You can't be here." "Police? What's going on?" Lucy seemed genuinely confused. "How did you know where we were?" I asked, increasingly alarmed. "A nurse friend of mine called me. She said Emily was being transferred, and that it looked serious." The detective and the officers exchanged tense glances. "Which nurse, exactly?" the detective asked. "Laura. She works at this hospital. She said it looked like an emergency." A chill ran down my spine. Laura? The name of the nurse who had cared for Emily at the beginning, the one Linda fired, saying she was an unnecessary expense. Detective, Laura was the nurse who... I didn't finish the sentence. A screech of tires filled the parking garage as a black SUV appeared out of nowhere, skidding toward us. The doors flew open and 3 armed men jumped out. "Get on the ground!" one of the officers yelled, drawing his weapon. It all happened in seconds. Gunshots, screams. I threw myself over Emily, shielding her with my body. The wheelchair tipped over, and we both fell to the floor. I felt a sharp pain in my shoulder. Through the chaos, I saw Lucy running, not for cover, but toward the SUV. One of the attackers helped her get in. "Lucy!" I screamed in disbelief. My own sister gave me one last look before the SUV sped away. There was no confusion in her eyes. There was determination. The officers fired at the vehicle's tires, but it was already too far away. The detective crouched beside us. "Are you hurt?" I felt wetness on my shoulder. Blood. A bullet had grazed me. "I'm fine," I said. "Emily." She was pale but conscious. "I'm not hit," she murmured. "Michael, your sister." "It looks like she's with them," the detective said, helping us up. "Did you have any suspicions?" "None. Lucy was always... She always seemed to be on my side." The second officer approached, bleeding from a cut on his forehead. The nurse she mentioned, Laura Mendez. "I just confirmed she hasn't worked at this hospital in 5 years." The detective cursed under her breath. "We have a serious leak. Change of plans. We're not going to the city." They quickly led us to another vehicle, hidden in a different part of the garage. A paramedic patched up my shoulder. "Where are we going now?" I asked as the car started. "To a safe house," the detective replied, "and I need you to tell me everything you know about your sister Lucy." During the drive, I tried to process Lucy's betrayal. How long had she been involved? Was she part of the plan from the beginning? I remembered her constant suggestions to put Emily in a home, her insistence that I needed a break. It wasn't concern. It was part of the plan. "Lucy managed my schedule for the last year," I said, suddenly remembering. "She offered to help me with Emily's appointments, the bills, everything. She had access to all our information." The detective nodded grimly. "The circle is closing. A complete family operation. But why?" The question escaped my lips, almost like a lament. Emily, who had been silent, spoke in a weak voice. "The documents my father hid. They don't just implicate David. There are more people involved. Important politicians, businessmen, millions of dollars in fraudulent contracts." She paused and looked directly at me. "Lucy's name is in those documents, Michael. She was the link between David and the officials." The revelation hit me like a sledgehammer. My own sister, whom I had always considered honest and hardworking, was part of a corruption ring that had destroyed our lives. "You knew this from the beginning?" I asked Emily. I found out later, from conversations I overheard between Linda and David. At first, I thought the goal was just the trust fund. Then I understood it was much bigger. The vehicle stopped in front of an anonymous building on the outskirts of the city. It looked like an abandoned warehouse, but inside were makeshift offices and agents at work. Tactical Operations Center, the detective explained. You'll be safe here while we organize the raid on the lake cabin. A medic tended to my wound while Emily was settled on a cot. Her face showed exhaustion, but also relief. For the first time in 6 years, she could speak freely. I'm so sorry, Michael, she said when we were alone. Everything you've been through because of me. It wasn't your fault, I replied, taking her hand. You did what you had to do to survive, to protect me. But Sarah, my sister, and now, finding out Lucy, is involved. We'll find Sarah, I promised, though I wasn't sure if it was a promise I could keep. And we'll stop everyone responsible. Emily squeezed my hand with a surprising strength for someone who had been paralyzed for so long. There's something else you need to know, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Something I overheard last week, when Linda was on the phone. They thought I was sedated, but I hadn't taken all the pills. What is it? It's about Sarah. And about why Lucy has been so involved in all of this. I looked at her expectantly, feeling that any new revelation could only worsen the hell our lives had become. Sarah isn't dead, Michael. She's alive. And she has a son. Yours. Mariella's words fell like a lightning bolt in the small room of the operations center. My mind refused to process what I had just heard. That's impossible, I stammered. Sarah is my sister. How could she have my son? Emily squeezed my hand tighter. Not your biological sister, Michael. Sarah was adopted by your parents when she was a baby. You always knew that, right? I felt short of breath. Yes, I always knew Sarah was adopted. It was something we never hid in the family. But I never imagined. But we grew up together, like brother and sister. There was never anything between us. Not until I was paralyzed, Emily said softly. Sarah would come to help you. You spent hours together while I pretended to sleep. I saw you getting closer. The way she looked at you. My mind went back to those first years after the accident. The constant exhaustion. The hopelessness. Sarah had been my biggest support. Always there. Always understanding. That doesn't mean we had a relationship, I protested weakly. The night before she disappeared, I heard you. I was in the living room, supposedly asleep. You were in the kitchen. Sarah confessed her feelings for you. She said she had always loved you, beyond your adoptive relationship. I remembered that conversation. I had been so confused, so vulnerable. Sarah had hugged me, comforting me for my wasted life caring for Emily. And then, that one kiss that changed everything. It was only once, I muttered. I was broken, confused. I never thought there could be a child. The next day, Sarah disappeared, Emily continued. Linda and David kidnapped her. But not because she discovered my medication. Like I told you before, it was because she confessed to them that she was pregnant. With your child. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked, feeling a mix of confusion and rage. Because I just found out a week ago. Linda was on the phone. She said the kid was almost 2 years old, and that Lucy wanted to get rid of the mother to keep him. Detective Suarez walked in at that moment, interrupting us. Her face showed a mix of urgency and triumph. We have the warrant for the lake cabin, and they just confirmed there's recent activity there. Lights on. Several vehicles. I stood up immediately, forgetting the pain in my injured shoulder. I need to go with you. Impossible, Mr. Vega. This is a police operation. My sister is there. And possibly. I looked at Emily, who nodded slightly. Possibly my son, too. The detective frowned. Your son? What are you talking about? I quickly explained the situation. The detective listened with a straight face, but I could see the surprise in her eyes. That complicates things, she said finally. But my answer is still no. It's too dangerous. If there's a child involved, my presence could help, I insisted. Sarah would trust me. The boy will need a familiar face. After a heated argument, the detective partially relented. You can accompany us, but you will stay on the outer perimeter with the paramedics. Only if we secure the scene and determine it's safe will we allow you to enter. Emily tried to sit up. I'm going too. Absolutely not, I said. You can barely move. You need to rest and recover. I've been resting for 6 years, Michael, she said with bitter irony. Besides, I know Linda better than anyone. I know how she thinks, how she reacts under pressure. We finally agreed that Emily would come with us, but she would remain in the vehicle with police protection. The operation launched immediately. 4 unmarked police vehicles, tactical officers, snipers. The lake cabin was an hour away. During the drive, Emily told me more details she had overheard. Linda always wanted a child but couldn't have one. When she found out Sarah was pregnant, she saw her chance. The plan was to hold her captive until she gave birth, then eliminate her and keep the child. And Lucy? How does she fit in? Lucy is the connection to the corrupt politicians. From what I understood, she and David have been lovers for years. It was her idea to use my fake paralysis to control the trust and keep you busy while they searched for the documents. Where are those documents exactly? In a hidden safe in the fireplace of my parents' house. The key you found is part of the combination. You need that key and a numerical sequence that only I know. The detective, sitting in the front seat, listened intently. Those documents will be crucial for the case, she said. But right now, our priority is rescuing the hostages. As we approached the lake, the night began to give way to the first rays of dawn. David's cabin was in an isolated area, surrounded by trees with direct access to the water. The vehicles stopped about 500 yards from the property. The tactical officers began to deploy silently into the woods surrounding the cabin. From our position, we could see lights on inside and 3 vehicles parked outside. The black SUV from the shootout, a gray sedan, and a red truck I recognized immediately. "That's David's truck," I whispered. The detective nodded and gave the final instructions over the radio. The plan was simple. Snipers would cover all exits while the tactical team entered from 3 different points simultaneously. "Remember, we have confirmed presence of at least 1 minor," the detective said. "Extreme caution." I watched with my heart in my throat as the officers moved toward the cabin. The silence was absolute, broken only by the occasional chirp of an early bird. Emily held my hand tightly. Suddenly, a scream came from inside the cabin, followed by the sound of breaking glass. "Go! Go! Go!" the detective ordered into her radio. It all happened in seconds. The officers stormed the cabin. There were shouts, commands, and then gunshots. 2, 3 dry pops. "Oh my God!" Emily exclaimed, clutching my arm. The next few minutes were agony. Finally, an officer's voice came over the radio. "Perimeter secure. 2 suspects neutralized. 1 suspect wounded. 2 hostages unharmed. I repeat, 2 hostages unharmed." The detective turned to us. "Wait here until I give the signal." She quickly got out of the vehicle and ran toward the cabin. Emily and I sat in silence, too shocked to speak. After what felt like an eternity, an officer approached and opened our door. "You can come in now. Be careful." I helped Emily out of the vehicle. She still needed support to walk, but her determination gave her strength. We walked slowly toward the cabin, where Detective Suarez met us. "David is dead," she informed us bluntly. "Linda is wounded but stable. Lucy surrendered without a fight." "And Sarah?" I asked, my voice trembling. "The boy? In the back room. They're okay. A medic is checking on them." We crossed the main room of the cabin, trying not to look at David's covered body or at Linda, who was receiving medical attention on the floor, guarded by 2 officers. Lucy was sitting in a corner, handcuffed, staring into space. As we walked past her, she looked up. "Michael," she said, her voice barely audible, "I never meant for it to go this far." I didn't stop. There were no words for what I felt toward my sister in that moment. The back room was small but cozy, and there was Sarah, sitting on a bed, holding a small boy in her arms. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. "Michael," she whispered, "you came for us." The boy, about 2 years old, looked at me with curiosity. He had my eyes, there was no doubt, and Sarah's smile. "Sarah," was all I could say before emotion overwhelmed me. I approached slowly, afraid of scaring the child. Sarah held out a hand to me. "Daniel, this is your dad," she told the boy in a soft voice, "the one I've told you so much about." The boy studied me with the intensity only small children possess. Then he smiled shyly. I felt something break and mend inside my chest. Emily had stayed at the door, watching the scene with a mix of emotions on her face. "Emily," Sarah said, surprised, "you're standing." "It's a long story," Emily replied, approaching slowly. "As long as yours, I suppose." The 2 women looked at each other for a long moment, sizing each other up, recognizing each other as survivors of the same nightmare. "They told me you were dead," Sarah finally said. "Linda showed me pictures, said they had eliminated you, and they kept you captive here." Emily replied, "while they made me believe they had murdered you." The detective interrupted us gently. "We need to take you all to the hospital for a full examination, and then we'll need to take formal statements." The next few hours passed in a fever dream. The hospital, doctors, the incessant questions from investigators. Sarah told us her story, how Linda and David had kidnapped her when they discovered her pregnancy, how they had held her prisoner, first in a house on the outskirts, then at the cabin. "They wanted to take Daniel from me as soon as he was born," she explained, "but Linda grew attached to him. She started treating me better, letting me care for him. I think that saved my life." "And Lucy?" I asked. "When did she get involved?" "She was always in on the plan," Sarah replied bitterly. "She was the one who suggested using me as a hostage to keep Emily under control. At first, she pretended to help you just to keep an eye on you. But over time, she got greedier. She wanted the documents, the trust fund, everything." Detective Suarez informed us that Linda, despite her injuries, had started talking. She was seeking a deal with the prosecutor's office in exchange for detailing the entire corruption network. "She's given us big names," the detective said. "State officials, businessmen, even a federal judge. This is going to cause a political earthquake in this city." 3 days later, when the doctors deemed us all stable, we returned to the city under police protection. Our first stop was Emily's parents' house, now cordoned off as a crime scene. Under Detective Suarez's supervision, Emily led us to the living room fireplace. She removed a specific stone from the inner lining, revealing a small compartment. There, using the key I had found in my drawer and a numerical combination she recited from memory, she opened a hidden safe. Inside was a thick folder with documents, USB drives, and photographs, all the incriminating material that Emily's father had collected over the years. "With this, we can ensure everyone involved pays for their crimes," the detective said, as she sealed everything as evidence. The following weeks were a whirlwind of court statements, medical therapies, and difficult decisions. Emily progressed rapidly with physical therapy, regaining the mobility she had pretended to lose for 6 years. Sarah and little Daniel were temporarily moved to a safe house, protected by the prosecutor's office. A month after the rescue, the three of us, Emily, Sarah, and I, met to talk about the future. It was a conversation we had postponed, but could no longer avoid. "The doctors say I'll be fully recovered in a few months," Emily began. "I've been thinking a lot about what I want to do next." "And what have you decided?" I asked cautiously. "I'm going to sell my share of the family house and move to a big city. I have an offer to teach contemporary dance at an academy." She paused, looking at me directly. "I want a fresh start, Michael, with no ties to the past." I understood what she was telling me. She wasn't asking me to go with her. "Emily, She held up a hand, stopping me. "You don't have to say anything. These 6 years have changed us both. I was pretending to be paralyzed, but in reality, we were both trapped." She looked at Sarah, then at me. "Now we are all free to choose." Sarah, who had been silent, spoke softly. "I don't want to get between you two. What happened between us, Michael, was under extraordinary circumstances. I don't expect anything." "But Daniel is my son," I replied. "And you're important to me, Sarah. You always have been." "I know. And Daniel needs his father, but I don't want you to be with me out of obligation." Emily slowly stood up, leaning on her cane. "I think you two need time alone to talk." "Wait," I asked her. "I don't want you to leave like this, after everything we've been through together." She smiled with a mix of sadness and serenity. "I'm not saying goodbye, Michael. I'm just giving you space to figure out what you really want, what we both want." After Emily left, Sarah and I sat in silence for a long time. Finally, she took my hand. "What are we going to do, Michael?" "I don't know," I answered honestly. "But I want to be a part of Daniel's life. And I want to see where this leads us, Sarah, without guilt, without pressure." 6 months later, life had found a new balance. Emily kept her word and moved to the city, where her career as a dance teacher was flourishing. We kept in touch, a cautious friendship that was slowly healing the wounds of the past. Sarah, Daniel, and I moved into a small house on the outskirts of the city. We started slowly, rediscovering each other, building an unconventional but loving family. The ghosts of our shared history still visited sometimes, but they grew fainter every day. Linda was sentenced to 30 years in prison for kidnapping, fraud, and conspiracy. Lucy received a lesser sentence, 15 years, thanks to her cooperation with the authorities. The corruption network they had woven with David was completely dismantled, bringing to justice officials and businessmen who thought they were untouchable. As for me, I went back to my old craft business, now with a small shop in the center of town. And every night when I tucked Daniel into bed and told him a story, I felt that despite all the pain and the lies, life had given me a second chance. The last time I saw Emily was at the opening of her dance academy. She was radiant, transformed. We hugged for a long time, without words. We both knew that, despite everything, our separate paths had led us to where we were meant to be. "Are you happy?" she asked before we said goodbye. "I am," I replied honestly. "And you?" "I'm learning to be," she said, smiling. "One day at a time. And that is my story. I cared for my paralyzed wife for 6 years, until a doctor told me to call the police. What came next destroyed my world, but it also allowed me to rebuild it, with truth, with pain, but finally, with love. If my story moved you, subscribe to the channel for more testimonies that will leave you breathless. Leave a comment telling me, what would you do in my situation?